So when cutting out the ribs using the router, you just need to get a blank that's a little bit bigger than the pattern itself, because the router is going to do the rest of the work getting out on the edge. So you don't need a lot of extra, but a little bit of extra. And just make a rough line around it. Just do that for several of these. Until we've got all the pieces we can get out of this one piece of metal. Now I'm just going to rough cut these out. And I find with these shears that if you hold them straight up and down, they cut a lot more difficult than if you angle them slightly to the right or left. It seems to cut a lot easier. And I'm just going to do that until I get all of these cut out. So now I have my pile of blanks, and the very first rib that I cut out by hand, and I use this as my hard pattern. And mainly all I need this for, because I'm going to do the rest of it with the router, is just to get the two tooling holes drilled in the right spot so that I can stack these up on my jig and when I route them out. So I just lay that down and make sure I've got my extra on the outside. And just take my Sharpie and mark the two tooling holes. And I do that for each blank. And the airfoil is not quite symmetrical, so one side's a little more bowed and one side's a little more flat, so just flip it around as I need it. And this works a lot better with a rigid pattern than a paper pattern, because obviously I can just go around the hole with the Sharpie. And I just do that for all of these, and then I'll take it over to the drill press, drill these holes out, and then I've got some place to stack it on my jig. So now I just take my drill press and drill out the tooling holes. And I do that for all of them, and I've got, again, some place to stack the pieces on my jig. Now we'll just do a little quick deburring on the holes. It's just an old paper pattern from something else. So now with the plywood pattern that I have here, I've got the screws in there, and I have them sticking up like little pins. And now I just stack up my aluminum pieces that line up with the tooling holes. And I can do several pieces at once with the router. Make sure you put them on the right way, because the tooling holes are not centered. And you could probably do more, but I've found that 4 is kind of the most that I like to do. And once I'll leave the last 2. And then we just get this lined up on this side. Again with the screws. And we'll flip that over. And just I've got some working pieces here instead of drilling into my work table. And now I'm just going to screw the whole thing down so that it all stays stationary while I'm working on the router. And make sure those screws are down below the level of the pattern here so the router doesn't run into them. And now I'm going to drill a couple of starter holes into the cutouts here for the router bit to go in. And I'm going to do that with a big 1/2 inch bit, which tends to wander when you put it on the aluminum. So I just take a little punch there and get a little starter going for the drill to bite into. Now the router tends to make a very big mess, a lot of little chips, so some people I guess make a little box to put all this in to catch the chips. I don't really feel like going through that much trouble, but I do put up this little fence here to keep most of the stuff from going that way, and the rest of it falls on the floor. And this whole process makes a heck of a lot of noise, so hearing protection and of course eye protection are mandatory. So now I'm just going to take my flush router bit. The bottom of that has a little bearing that rides on the bottom of this pattern here, and I'm just going to stick that in the starter hole. Now that we've got the lightning holes cut out, we'll just cut out around the outside, same process, just come in with the bit, follow everything around, and we'll have a nice piece, all complete. Now we just pull the screws out. That one's getting a little old. And we've got four nicely cut wing ribs for the nose. Need a little deburring, but not too bad.